Hi guys and gals, Narmak here. I know a lot of you are curious about how I make my animations. You guys ask a lot of questions, like what software I use, where I get the voice actors from, and how I manage to drudge on animating hours into the night, day after day, when I can simply free myself of this painful existence with the sweet release of death. Well, I decided to finally show everyone a window into my creation process. And what better way to do that than to start with a behind-the-scenes look on the first episode of the SpongeBob anime. Sit back, relax, and enjoy to the max while I show you how I made the SpongeBob anime. Before we begin, there's a couple notables I wanted to point out. Numero uno, my word is not the animating gospel. Like I've said in the past, my process is just that, my process. It works well for me, and I believe it would help a lot of you too. But if you think you have a better way of doing something, feel free to try it out and experiment. If you think you have a different software that would work better, or a technique that might be faster, or even drawing with your stinky little toes that would bring in a yummier result, then go for it. Second, I'll be breaking down almost every aspect of video creation, including animation, music, voice acting, sound design, editing, and more. In most of my videos, I handle most of these categories, and it's so much work! But for the SpongeBob anime, I managed to gather a group of beautiful individuals who could assist my booty while I focus mainly on the animation. With that out of the way, my friends, let us begin with the concept phase. It all began with a dream. Or was it a meme? A drameme? Well, anyways, let's begin with the SpongeBob anime opening 1 all the way back in August of 2017. I got a lot of questions like, why did you create this incredible concept, and what drove you to bestow upon us pitiful peons this gorgeous, delectable piece of consumable media? Quick answer, I was bored. I was at the time in college grinding away to meet the curve for the intense economics program at my school, and my creative juices were bursting to be released. I saw a lot of these parody anime openings that used the Evangelion song but tweaked visuals, you know, like King of the Hill anime opening or 2016 US presidential race anime opening, and I thought to myself, okay, so this is great guys, Evangelion, let's go, but what if we made it better? So I thought of a franchise I adore, picked an anime opening that sounds great, mixed together hours and hours of blood, sweat, tears, and Doritos, and voila! We got ourselves a dank animation. What followed was less than dank. Some baboon uploaded it on Twitter without credits or the intro with my name on it. It blew up and nobody knew I made it. YouTube removed it from their site for some BS reason, and for 2 weeks while it was down, it was re-uploaded all over YouTube and the World Wide Web to millions upon millions of views using the version without my name on it so everyone could enjoy my creation while not knowing the creator. Needless to say, I was a sad, sad little boy. I even emailed Critical, yes, that Critical, pleading with the moist god for some advice, and surprisingly, he replied. And he bestowed upon me his liquid wisdom. For real though, random shout out, but Charlie is a great guy. Thanks so much for the reassurance, my friend. Go check out his cheeks. It was eventually brought back 2 weeks later, but the best part? It's copyright claimed, so those 18 million views, I don't see a single penny. Nope, not a shekel. Thanks, Susan! But I'm not telling you all this to throw myself a pity party. Rather, I want you guys to understand why it took me 3 years to finally make an episode of this. All the nonsense I have to deal with from YouTube and clout chasers really turned me off on investing all that effort and pain into making an actual episode of a SpongeBob anime. It was only years later, when I thought I was finally safe from YouTube's wrath, that I decided to attempt this massive project. Though that didn't exactly result in a smooth experience, but I'm sure most of you have heard of that travesty. Enough sad boy hours, let's get into the meat of things. When opening 1 was created, I obviously didn't think of an entire story at that point, so the opening itself is pretty self-contained. It tells its own little story of love, loss, and betrayal, ending with Patrick getting freaking decapitated for that extra crazy ending. It's obviously super spoilery, but I think I did a good job at telling a little story while mimicking those anime opening tropes we adore so much, Opening 2 was very much the same, telling a small story throughout the opening. It was only after Opening 2's awesome reception that I thought of actually going through with making an episode of a mock SpongeBob anime. You guys were clamoring for more, and despite the hurdles I'd had to go through, I knew in my heart of hearts that I had to succeed for my beautiful fans. And so, with the series in mind, I made Opening 3, an opening that was more nuanced and less spoilery, and just hinting at events to come. This is why episode 1 starts with Opening 3. While Opening 1 and 2 were made for fun and would feel out of place for the direction I wanted to take this epic franchise, Opening 3 could be used freely, and for those wondering, it says final season here because I was not going to create another opening. 3 is a crowd. On top of that, Opening 3's song is an original made by Romy, the mighty musician responsible for many of the songs I use in my parody openings. This had to be done due to copyright issues. Opening 1 got copyright bombed, and Opening 2 was a cover by Romy of an existing song, and even that was copyright claimed. God damn it, Susan! Oh, and I also made an ending to put the cherry on top of this sponge cake, armed with an opening, an ending, and a dream. I then moved on to writing the script. I started writing the script for episode 1 sometime mid to late 2019, when I knew I wanted to make an episode, but not exactly how I wanted to make it. All I knew was that I wanted to make something spectacular, inspired by my favorite anime like Naruto and JoJo, and having seen dozens of other shonens, I wanted to parody some of the tropes typical of these series, except add that SpongeBob twist. You know, like the shonen rivalry, except with SpongeBob and Squidward. I mean, even their colors matched this trope. The main happy dude being bright with reds, browns, and yellows, and his edgy rival being darker and blue. The anime rage moments, the wise sensei spouting wise words, the throwaway first villain who's evil for no reason and just gets wrecked episode 1, and the main dude having some dank dark power that gives him the big boy power boosts that are always hype. The characters in SpongeBob lend themselves well to shonen archetypes, SpongeBob obviously being the main character, Squiddy as the rival with self-esteem issues, Patrick as the cool wise sword dude, Mr. Krabs as the grizzled sensei with dark secrets, and Sandy as the girl in the group. Shonens were never that great at writing good female characters, so I did write Sandy as a mirror to that stereotype, but I definitely plan on making her badass in episode 2. Coming soon, wink wink. The beauty of taking something like SpongeBob and twisting it like this is that everyone is familiar with this world and its wacky characters. All I had to do was add that little bit of anime flavor to make this jambalaya extra spicy. Writing the story for episode 1 wasn't too difficult, to be honest. There are things I knew. I wanted a disposable villain to get wrecked, I wanted to introduce the main cast of good guys and show their personalities, and I wanted to parody shonen tropes with SpongeBob. So I started writing the general outline of events that I wanted to occur, then after that, the dialogue around these events. And I picked Bubble Bass as the main villain because I like 'em thick. Now a script is useless without people to voice it, and it just wouldn't be anime without being in Japanese. Well, lucky for me, one man helped make this dream into a reality. But before that, there's one small thing I'd like to discuss that's really important. Funding. I spent months working on episode 1 of the SpongeBob anime. How many months, you ask? Well, 1, 2, carry the 7. Around 6 months of pure animating work, and even more if you count the writing and planning phases. Now that's a lot of time working without a steady source of income. After all, I make money based not on the quality of releases, but how much I release. Thanks, Susan! So sustaining myself while working on a project this huge is really tough, and makes it kind of unfeasible. How else do I feed my nightly feast of Doritos and Mountain Dew? Yummy in my tummy. So how do I fund the SpongeBob anime? Well, I'm sure most of you saw this coming a mile away, but sometimes I take sponsorships, like the sponsor of this video, Raid Shadow Legends. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard of Raid one way or the other, being one of the most well-known and influential mobile games out there on the market today. And why is that? Well, when you've got the ability to take on raid bosses, dungeon runs, and campaign battles, I'm not too surprised. Why else would everyone talk about it? Hey, get that out of here! No, but really, Raid really supports creators like me, and they constantly update their game with amazing new features and content, including some awesome bosses that'll test your mettle. One of these bosses is the Fire Knight, whose real name is Fyro. Yeah, his mama wasn't too creative when naming him. Well, his mama named him right because Fyro summoned his fiery fury and slayed the Frost King at a peace summit. Guess Fire Knights really don't mix, huh? Well, when battling the Fire Knight, his shield makes him really tanky and immune to debuffs and damage, so make sure to bring champs who slash away. The more hits, the better. Bye bye, Fyro. And what's new in Raid? To kick off the summer, they've got a huge schedule of events planned. That includes special fusion events to get a brand new legendary champion, tournaments against other players, and much more. On top of that, 5 brand new champions are coming to rock the boat, so make sure to try out the new champs and the fresh content. To get a head start in all of this, just click the link in the description or scan my QR code to get the Hero Chinoru 200k silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard to start your summoning journey ASAP. All of this will be waiting for you here in the inbox. Thanks to Raid for all the support, and check out Raid Shadow Legends today. The voices in episode 1 were handled by none other than John Wang, a voice actor and voice acting director. I initially discovered his talent when he and his team moaned their lovely voices out in a dubbing they made of a teaser trailer I created for the SpongeBob anime episodes. He contacted me through my Discord server. Check out my server, by the way, and join the dankness. Let's go. We exchanged ritual throat screaming as is tradition on the Narmak Discord, and I made a wonderful new friend. John manages a variety of talented voice actors, including Japanese VAs, and he and his team were gracious enough to lend a hand with episode 1 and future episodes. I cannot thank them enough for coming through for something like this. Please go check them out in the links in the description. So with John on board and the script written, I gave him the script to work his magic with his team. Alongside the script, I gave him the storyboard, which I'll talk about in a bit, with the entire board being voiced by me to give a feel of the characters' expressions during dialogue and their interactions. This is something I always do when working with voice talent on an animation, as just handing them a script might not be enough information for how I want a scene to be handled. Of course, hearing my succulent voiceover scribbles isn't the most professional experience, but it gets the job done. The music we created for episode 1 is spectacular. Every track is an original piece of music created from scratch by 2 musical masterminds, Sander the composer and Seikara. I recently uploaded the entire OST of episode 1, so check that out on my channel if you want to bless your ears. To get the tracks to match the scenes they were placed in, I provided Sander and Seikara the storyboard with sample tracks from existing media. Using the storyboard and samples, the two crafted some truly spectacular stuff. Seikara mostly worked independently, being the music master he is, while Sander worked more closely with me to ensure the tracks for certain scenes match exactly how I envisioned them to be. This includes the Bubble Bass fighting track for SpongeBob, which is probably one of my favorite tracks of the OST. We would call on Discord and he would stream his program which he used to make music, and I would use my Unga Bunga barbarian knowledge of music to attempt to describe how I wanted certain parts of the track, as well as to give feedback on his progress. Using my tips, Sander would create an entire track out of them, adding on his own touches to get the feel of SpongeBob, resulting in some absolutely smashing tracks. He truly is a great composer. But I've beat around the bush. It's time to talk about the meat and potatoes of the episode, the visuals, beginning with the storyboard. For me, storyboarding requires some of the most concentration when putting together an animation. I don't listen to music or distract myself in any way. I simply glue my eyes to the screen, plant my booty in my chair, and get to work. This is because, in my opinion, storyboarding is one of the most important aspects of creating an animation, being the foundation of the entire piece. Using my animating software Adobe Flash CS6, I begin drawing the rough scenes for each cut, with each cut being roughly 1 frame or picture. For more intense cuts with lots of movement or animation, I'll add very broad extra frames to get the idea of how I want them to move. The storyboard process is meant to lay out the rough idea of each cut, including the characters, their placement, the camera angles, notes on how certain scenes will act or move, and more. My boards don't need to be beautiful. They're rough, full of scribbles, and kinda fugly. But since I'm the only one animating the project, I don't have to worry about sharing it with others to animate. And I'm allowed to get away with making it rougher than usual as long as I understand how it's supposed to function. Once I'm finished with the storyboard in Flash, I export each frame and place them into Premiere Pro, where I then space them out accordingly and do my own special voice acting of the script for the entire board. This then gets sent to John and the voice actors as reference so they can sing their tunes to the board. With the board finished and sent to the team to work with, it was time to kick it to high gear for the animation. Next up is the outline. The outline of the episode is essentially me doing the rough animation and timings for every cut. This part of the process allows me to translate the scribbles of the storyboard into a coherent scene with movement. Essentially, I would go through each cut from the storyboard and draw the characters, backgrounds, keyframes, and other essentials. The animation should start to come to life here. Timing the keyframes and adding some breakdowns when needed is very important for the outline, as it allows the animation to define its spacing and movement. Creating the outline is one of the most enjoyable parts of animating for me. It's here that the animation starts to become realized. Really tickles my pickles. Once the outline is finished, it's time for the most daunting part of creating an animation, finalization. The most grueling and time-consuming part of my animation process! Finalization is a term I use to describe creating the final line art, shading, coloring, background art, and other aspects of a cut. On top of the final line art for keyframes, I smooth out the animation by drawing breakdowns and in-betweens, filling in empty space and long spaces between keyframes to make the animation smooth as a baboon's booty. When the final line art is completed, I then go over each cut to shade in the animation, which I covered here in this tutorial if you're interested in checking it out. Link in the description. Once everything is drawn and shaded, it's time for the big bonanza, coloring. After creating a color palette for each character, I go over every cut and color them appropriately. Some scenes have slightly different colors used for the same character depending on the scene. For example, being inside the dark Krusty Krab, the shadows have a hint of blue in them, while when the lads are outside, their shadows have a touch of red. Playing around with the color palettes helps add that extra juiciness to the animation, though not all of it needs to be done directly. Adobe After Effects is really useful for playing around with the entire color mood of a scene if adjustments are needed. The last part of finalization is the lip sync. Once I have all the lines from the VAs, I import them into Flash individually and sync character mouth to their voices. This process of finalization is what kills me every time I animate. The hours spent making sure the line work is smooth, shading every frame of every cut, the repetitive nature of coloring every bit of a character. I'm not gonna lie, it can get really monotonous, but that feeling when you're nearing the end and seeing your work near completion is scrumptious. After being finalized, a cut should be basically finished, only having to go through Adobe After Effects for visual touch-ups or additional video effects to really make it pop. And with that, we move on to the final part of the visual process, the editing. With all the finished cuts of the animation ready to go, it's time for the final stop, the editing. Each finished cut is exported from Adobe Flash and imported into After Effects, when any number of effects are applied depending on the cut. For example, color correction and contrast is adjusted to amp up the vibrant nature of scenes. Other effects I apply include things like shaky cam. Though overall camera movement is done in Flash using VCam, additional shakiness is done through After Effects. Glow, light rays, light burst, and other effects are added when needed to get the maximum effectiveness from each cut. To put it simply, I take cool moving drawings and I make them look cooler. With these super duper finished cuts, all I have to do is drag them into Premiere Pro over the storyboard, adjust and time them to fit how I like and to match the voice acting, add in minor effects like cuts, transitions, fades, and it's all done. On the sound design of the episode, 100% of that credit goes to Strelok. All I had to do was send him the voice with voices and music, and he sound designed the shit out of it. Having done the sound editing of many of my own videos, I know how tough it is, so the quality of his work once he was done was amazing. And there we go, a nice and complete fantastic episode of the SpongeBob anime all finished. Yeah! If I were to pick the hardest part of all this, it would definitely have to be working on it every day for months on end. At times, it seemed like the work was never ending, and that it would take forever to finish. But seeing the awesome progress from the team and the support you guys give me, I pressed on and managed to get out a pretty damn good result. Some technical hiccups included issues with software, like Adobe Flash not being able to handle the complexity of some cuts. The lag it had was unbearable at times, and when exporting, it would even skip frames. I had to get pretty creative to make it work, even separating cuts into 2 or 3 parts just so that the program wouldn't self-destruct. Adobe, you disappoint me. Also, I hate drawing backgrounds, and I never want to draw a background ever again! And that's that. Thank you again to the entire team for their work on the episode, including John and the VAs for voices, Sander and Seikara for the music, and Strelok for sound design. I hope this video gives you some insight on my animation process and hopefully helps you when making your own animations or just videos in general. A project like this is extremely daunting, so please also understand why it takes so long to make. If I were just to make SpongeBob shows all day, I think I'd go bananas. So I like to keep myself busy with other fun projects that I'm sure most of you familiar with my channel already know about. But don't worry, my SpongeBob anime simps, more will come sooner than you think. You just gotta be patient and believe. Or just offer to draw my background. Seriously, I hate drawing the background so much. Okay, that's all folks. Have a great day, bye.